you had a 12-foot sidewalk, that would mean 8 foot is for the pedestrian. After that, there was a 3-foot service aisle, which was there for the wait staff of this, of the sidewalk cafe. And what would be left would be maybe a foot after that. Sometimes if it was a wider sidewalk, you'd have more room left. But what happened, the rule was that you were the restaurateur. You served your clients within your portion of the sidewalk and not within the public pedestrian clear path. That is not in these rules. And that means that in these rules, even with an 8-foot pedestrian clear path, the DOT will be allowing restaurant owners to be serving their clients on the public clear path for free. For free. Thank you. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. So next, we have Josh Spodek, Augustin Hope, Laura Tenenbaum, Natalia Petrelza, and Kathy Arnson. So if you guys will just kind of line up in that order if you are here. So Josh Spodek, Augustin Hope, Laura Tenenbaum, and Natalia Petrelza. Sorry, I'm sorry, I've got a little tongue twister today. So if Josh is not here, Augustin. Hello.
All right, thank you. I'm literally just off the plane from England. I think we're going to cover all the main points: trash, vermin, expanding beyond other businesses. I mean, we have all these late hours. One of the things I just want to touch on, because I think it's very important, is enforcement, which is not really addressed within the rules. What we have is a situation here where we're all frustrated by this problem. Every time there's a problem, we call in a complaint. And 99 times out of 100, we get a bounce back saying that they've had a look at the problem and they can't see any problem, case closed. What we have here is a situation which I would call the iceberg problem. Somebody's traveling across the Atlantic, they see an iceberg, and by the time the Coast Guard arrives, it's melted. So we have a real-time enforcement problem here, which is there is no way, short of calling the police, which is they know nothing about this, they know nothing about the rules, they know nothing about what it is they're supposed to do. They just see it as they sort of calm down the public engagement. We need some way that somebody is actively and proactively coming out and doing inspections and getting to know us, getting to know the community, getting to know the restaurants, getting to understand what the problems are, and getting ahead of these issues rather than constantly being behind, which is why these fights keep on happening. Please address that with the DOT. Thank you.
Laura, and then Natalia, Kathy Arnson, Andrea Mayer, Peter.
Thanks so much for holding this and for allowing these voices to come forth. So I'm Natalia, not Laura. I'm a resident of West 4th Street between Bank and West 12, on the side of the street that has 4 dining sheds, basically back to back. I want to express, at the risk of repeating some of what's been heard here, 3 main issues. 1, sanitation. The rats and the garbage are out of control. The garbage, keep in mind, is doubled or tripled based on how big the capacity is of these restaurants now. We also have had no street cleaning since 2020. And this is an issue that was raised in the 1880s. And right now we have to make an argument that we deserve the street cleaning we pay for. Pedestrian safety: it is impossible to look across the street and to cross safely. We have young children who sometimes have to walk in the street, all of us, because the sidewalks are so crowded with people waiting to get into these restaurants or spilling out from them. The crowds and the noise of the people who come there, gather, wait outside, attract bands to play to the people in the dining sheds are out of control, not to mention the honking that happens all day, because now there's nowhere that anybody can pull over to allow another car to pass by. That's also, I should say, a safety and disability issue, where my mother, who can't walk very far, no ride share can actually stop on our block any longer. They have to go so far, she can't even go up and make them. I'll also say that as someone who respects very much the historic character of our neighborhood, and when we did renovations, and every inch of color had to be approved by LPC. The idea that the face of our streets is completely transformed the way it looks by these sheds without any kind of second thought or approval is really awful. And then I'll echo the last comment about enforcement. You know, I have filed probably hundreds of 311 reports to absolutely no avail. Even when, for a time, these sheds would have stamped on them, must be taken down. Even that egregious, nothing ever happened. So I have to say, when I see sometimes our elected officials congratulating themselves on fewer rat complaints, we've all basically given up. Most people on our blog said it's not worth it anymore. I want to move, we'll have to deal with it. So, you know, that's resignation, not success. Thank you.
One question.
The graph that you're referring to, I believe, if memory serves me correct, I did not go down there recently
Yeah.
to remember, there's no space between each of the sheds, correct? They're back to back.
So recently, I'm not exactly sure why. I think because of that new rule about having to put out like garbage containers, 2 of them come back like 4 to 6 feet of their sheds. I think that was supposed to be a concession to us. I'm not totally sure, but they are effectively back to back. There's room, I believe, for 2 parking spaces.
So the question I had was one of the, in reading the legislation, that there's 3 feet is requirement between the sheds. And in your situation, if there's 3 feet between them, how does that impact that particular block? And I just, you know, would that be an improvement? Because right now they have the regulations.
Yeah.
So are there any other suggestions that might be?
3 feet would do nothing for us, because it just creates this little corridor for more garbage to pile up, or where they just store their various pieces of furniture. In my sense, what would really help is that certain blocks that are a certain width just shouldn't have sheds, or there should be 1 per block. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Okay, so next we have Kathy. Hi. Andrew, Mayor, Peter. I don't have a last name, then Marianne, Pizza, Dennis.
Hello, thank you so much for this hearing. I am Kathy Arnson, Chair of the Central Village Block Association, which includes the area from Bleecker to West 4th between 6th and 7th Avenues, including Leeward Street. All of these streets have been negatively affected by the outdoor dining program. When I went to a meeting in July of 2021, which was attended by members of the DOT, we asked how, if any of them had actually walked around our neighborhood to see how impossible it was to navigate our streets. 2 years, over 2 years later, nothing, everything has gotten worse, basically. Also, I commented that the streets had not been cleaned in 1 year. Now, over 2 years later, our streets still have not been cleaned. These rules cater to one industry that has less and less respect for the residents and small mom and pop businesses surrounding them. We cannot maintain reasonable quality of life and neighborhood safety levels. Few examples: emergency vehicles need more than 15-foot clearance, especially on Cornelia Street where I live. We need a guarantee that roadway structures will be removed completely from December to March so that the streets can be cleaned. I don't think it actually says that it's a guarantee that they'll be removed. Roofs and walls should be prohibited on outdoor structures. There should be no outdoor heating. Sorry, I know I'm repeating. We are in a climate emergency. And also the operating hours are too long, obviously. So I think that's it.
What did you say? Between, you had said that the 15-foot emergency clearance was not big enough And then you had said roofs and wall prohibited. What did I miss in between there?
And we need a guarantee that the rotary structures will be removed completely from December to March. During the seasonal program.
Yeah, I saw in there that it said, it's like a week, it's like up to a week or something, right? But that's not,
But is it guaranteed?
not
It's a
guaranteed.
guarantee. I don't know. I think the language is a little bit.
Yeah, it's something like disbanded by December 7th or something. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Andrea Mayer, Peter. I don't have the last name for Peter, Marianne Pizza Dennis. Leaf Arnson. Susan Lashley.
I live on Bedford Street. I agree with everything that has been said before me. I oppose everything they said. There is no consideration for the rest, the noise, the people, the residents, the businesses over the residents. Where one of the proposals is no amplified noise. All you need is people sitting outside your window talking, just talking, and they might as well be in your living room. So I don't know what amplified noise means as a proposal. My particular block, the stacks should never have been there because our streets, our sidewalks are not 8 feet wide to begin with. So where's the enforcement? It wasn't there then, when would it be there now? And one of the stipulations prior to COVID and people getting liquor licenses was their doors had to be closed 24/7. Now they leave their doors open. So you have the people outside talking, not amplified, just talking, and the doors open, so you get the noise from the restaurants coming in as well. So that's it. I'm concerned about the enforcement, about the amplified noise, you know.
And the fact that there's nothing in the there's nothing in the rules that mitigates for the noise of people talking. It's just an amplified noise.
Yeah, so you don't need it, but just people chit chat, you know, you take 10 people talking, you know, and I live on the first floor next to the restaurant, they might as well be in my living room. There's no consideration.
You know, while we also have the ability to put in comments, what you just touched on was actually gonna be my question, obviously with Bedford Street, there are a lot of ground floor residences. And this is a new area that wasn't eligible for any outdoor dining before COVID. And I'm just wondering how many residential units are on the ground floor that abut existing restaurants right now.
There's a number of them.
I mean, it's significant, right, on Bedford Street, because this is
Off the top of my head, I would say 8 that are on the ground floor, you know, other than the restaurants.
over history, I know that residents of Bedford Street have testified extensively about
Against liquor
the changes in the businesses because it's exclusively residentially zoned. Now, we had the changeover, now there's magnification, so the impact is even larger, is, I guess my point.
Yes,
Because of the adjacent residential units
correct.
directly, which you live in one.
Yes, I'm on the first floor next to the restaurant.
Because I don't think there's anything in the regulations that addresses that, and that's something that is significantly different. And
Significant.
I don't know if that's in the legislation, if we can or can't comment on that, but I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And just to reiterate, those sheds should never have been on Bedford Street because our sidewalks are not 8 feet wide. So that's my concern, enforcement before and enforcement now.
Thank you.
I think.
Okay, so next. Andrea Mayer, Lee Fornson. Susan Lashley. And Nikki.
Hello, thanks
Hi.
for, so I live on Cornelia Street, and just using Cornelia Street as a micro, or as an example, of what I think it's gonna do. I'm not talking to you. as an example, where before the pandemic, we had, I think, 12 seats on narrow sidewalk, the narrow street. Oh my God. Stop this. Excuse me 1 second. It's a narrow street, narrow sidewalk. We had, I think, 12 seats outside of the cafe for 30 years in one cafe. When the pandemic hit, we went up to 8 sheds, over 200 seats outdoors on a narrow street like that. It was an enormous impact in the neighborhood, of course, and like many other streets. Now we kind of got it down to 4 sheds and less than 100 seats. And the question is, just reading through the rules, there isn't 15 feet for an emergency lane. There's only 12 feet currently, 11 or 12 feet. Because the street's only 19 feet wide. And it's impossible to have an 8-foot clear path on a street like that. And again, this is very common throughout the village. How do we what kind of guarantees do we have that are all these places going to all of a sudden be taken off and because it'd be impossible for them to comply? Or are there going to be waivers given to them? I saw in there that if FDNY signs off and says, well, we could get by with only 11 feet on this particular street. Who's asking the FDNY that question? That's very important. It's impossible to get an 8-foot clear path on these narrow sidewalks. I don't care what the restaurants do by the time they try to serve and operate through their doors. The other is that on the business frontage side, the sheds are not within the building's perimeter currently. So what do? They cut them back. How much do they cut them back? What kind of clearance is there? Again, the ground floor space is just a fraction of what the residential building is. To Carter's point, there's residents street level all the way up and down the block, one end to the other. It's huge impact where the residential building itself doesn't have room. It was tight before all of this to be able to put garbage and your trash. Now there's no curb space. What guarantee is there that we would have the adequate curb space to deal with the residential needs to access the building for emergency or trash hauling or just the comings and going every day? Thank you.
I have a question. Obviously, the advocacy work on your blog has been pretty significant throughout COVID, local elections, et cetera. So one of the things that I sort of read, or it seemed that they could do a narrower sidewalk shed, that they have a maximum. That seems like your block would be very impacted if that was a workaround, right?
Yeah, it would
15
be.
feet, and I'm just wondering, because it seems that the intersection of, and I don't think this is addressed in anything, the clear path has nothing to do with the roadway.
No.
But what often happens is that you have such a narrow furnishing zone that the impact starts to spill over. And if you are serving from the sidewalk into the shed, none of that's taken into account. I'm just, that's what I see would be something that would come out from this, is that situation. And,
yeah, even if the shed is cut back in depth, what you're saying,
right,
or even in width, you're still dominating the sidewalk because you've got to get to that shed. You've got to go back and forth to it. You're going to have equipment. It's inevitable.
And then absent a service lane, if the shed is narrower, you can't even step into the shed to serve.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's because this is more of an anomaly street throughout the city. These are the types of things from our community we want to raise, and maybe why, commenting, I'm not quite sure what we will comment on, but on the exceptions, because I think you raised a very good point in the exceptions, that there needs to be some more attention paid to that.
Very concerned about that.
And maybe some more guidelines, because we certainly understand certain circumstances, but I know that the amount of time that our board office under our previous district manager and our elected officials addressing this, and that's, I guess, what we want to avoid, so it's very clear the rules going forward. But if you have any more thoughts on that, if you could send them in to us too. Just because I think your block on 4 sidewalk cafe licenses that were mistreated, how they were even issued, because it was in a residential zone under the previous rule, so.
I think answering those questions, I'll certainly share more information, but answering the question of how these exceptions are made is a really critical one. Because our experience has been that we're not involved in those waivers. We're not involved in weighing in on, you know, that's not such a good idea. And I don't see any evidence that we would be involved in the future if a restaurant says, well, I'm here, I've been here for 4 years, I'm, you know, and I went to the FDNY, and they said, well, we would get in there. I'm a fireman, they're gonna get in there. Listen, I know that, but that's not really the point. How long would it take for them to get in there? How long would it take the EMS to get in there, get in through the trash cans? What do they have to do to get all that stuff aside and move in? And also just people coming and going from their buildings. So that's, thank you.
I think next we have Mickey, and then, or Susan Lashley, if you're here. I don't know if you're-
That's me.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, okay, so go after Mickey. Sorry. I was asking people to line up. So Mickey and then Susan.
Hey, hi Valerie, hi everyone. Here we are again. 3 years and counting. October 13th, 2020 was the first time I started thinking about the ruination of my neighborhood. And it has proceeded apace, despite all we've done. I want to respond and amplify a few points, and also build out one other point. The statute gives restaurants up until midnight, every night of the week. We know that, and we know that this process can't change that. But the idea of extending it to 1 in the morning on other nights is absolutely unacceptable. Absolutely, in any circumstance, unacceptable. And so I would say that if they're going to stick to that, they should. But if they are going to make that the rule, you all on the community board should have the right to determine who gets that 1 a.m. hour, not the restaurant, not the tea. You all should reserve that hour for yourselves. Second thing I wanted to talk about is already been addressed, but I have another dimension to it, and that's the vanishing service hour, which we know is articulated in the statute and it's not in the regulations. So with respect to what Carter said is actually spot on and key to what I'd like to talk about, which is that there will be no 8-foot clear path because wait staff will be crossing back and forth, carrying trays of food and drink, and we know that because we see it already. But there's even something worse. There's a new invention in here. It's not actually an invention, it's already on the streetscape, but it's a new language. The floating parking lane. So if you put a shed in the floating parking lane, then that wait staff that is traipsing back and forth, carrying, dealing with customers and so on, that person's going to be walking across a bike. That is ridiculous. That is unsafe. That should be a violation of OSHA law. Restaurant workers should organize around it, but it should not be in the statute that you can have a shed in a parking lane that is across from the final one I'm going to stop, I know I've gone over time, is that the garbage. There's a lot in here, in this bunch of pages about the garbage. Lots of places where you can't put the garbage. I would say there's no place to put the garbage. Where are they going to put the goddamn garbage? It's piled up in front of my house. It's piled up all down the block. It's piled up on the putative clear path. There is no clear path. We need our sidewalks back. We need our streets back. We won't be able to get it through these regulations, but we must have our streets and sidewalks back. Thank you.
Mickey, I have a question for you. Baseline streets,
Baseline streets.
they only require a 4-foot clear path, and community connector streets only require a 5-foot clear path, which is different from neighborhood corridor. Have you guys?
No, we haven't even drilled down, because frankly, Carter, I've read 4 versions of 31, 31A, 31B, 31C.
Right.
And on this, I looked at it and I said, there's very little we can do at this point. We must have an 8-foot clear path on every sidewalk that is 8 feet wide, and no service across a sidewalk that is smaller.
Well, and that's why I raised
Yeah,
that,
thank you. Yeah.
because I'm just curious if we actually have any streets. And I unfortunately, they're just so everybody knows, they're only mapped in color on a map, that you can't actually search them, so. And the colors are not so easy to distinguish, at least for me.
And that's an ADA
And I
violation.
don't know if anybody else has combed through this stuff, but this is of interest to us because we actually have all these anomalies in our community board, and this is why we want to comment on it. So trying to get from everybody else the examples helps us bring back and highlight where this would be an impact.
I think you raise a really important point, and I want to bring one other bit of information to this. Again, it is not resolved through these regulations. You know, my day job is being a sociologist, and I spent 2 weeks looking at the open restaurants data in that last spring break. And I did the numbers on what the density of outdoor dining sites is in each community district. Our district has close to 700 outdoor dining sites per square mile, many more than that in the district. And the average across the city is under 40 per square mile. So what you've got is you've got an epic problem in here that has to do with proportionality. But proportionality can only be addressed at the statutory level. It can't be addressed at this rules level. So I understand that, but I think it's important for us to remember what we've been saying all along, is this program is out of control in our neighborhood. We love outdoor dining in our neighborhood. We embraced it. We had a fabulous sidewalk cafe program. People pretend that we didn't. And now we're having our neighborhood ruined, and it's not right, it's not fair. And I hope it doesn't stand. There is litigation against this. But if people want to understand how to contribute to that litigation, please talk to Leslie Clark or to me.
So if anybody is familiar with them, talk. Or it would be really helpful if you're interested, and let us know, because for example, on Bedford Street, which is considered a neighborhood corridor, the suggested guidelines are an 8-foot clear path, a 12-foot walk lane, a 3-foot furnishing zone, and as many of you know, the sidewalk's not even 3 feet wide in some places. And so these are some of the anomalies that we want to know about so that we can comment on, and we need to know your local conditions as an example so that we can incorporate those.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen. Thanks, all.
Thank you. Susan.
Good evening. If the money that the city wants to earn from this is really to benefit the budget, and the budget is to benefit citizens of New York, then how come we're selling ourselves so short? I think that the fees that they have mentioned in this are ridiculously low. The license application fees are too low. They should be at least 50 to 10,000, 5,000 to 10,000 for each sidewalk or roadway cafe, depending upon the size of the restaurant or bar facility. The terms of the license, I think, should be decreased from 4 years to 1 year. Need to take a look at how well they are doing their job of self-enforcement and other people. we should also strengthen the language to require site plan drawing, to require a professional third party to certify that the property lines and the measurements are accurate, with such certification statement being signed and notarized. Also, I think that 25% in the bills of any earnings for the city from this entire program should be absolutely dedicated to DOT active full-time staff enforcement of this whole program, or some kind of enforcement of, people.
What was the percentage you would suggest?
25%. If they wanna earn money, then they need to allocate a normal amount of money for enforcement, especially if something that impacts residents to this degree. Then also, I think that the annual fee rate should be per square foot. All of those amounts should be at least quadrupled. Because if you just look at the benefit of profit that they're making, and I'm not talking gross, I'm talking net profit, they're getting away with murder with the numbers that are here. And then finally, I'll just say that I was a little alarmed about the community board review time spans, where if you guys are able to address something within 40 days of receipt, then it can be automatically approved. I think that's a giveaway and a green light, especially for bad actors. I think that it should be at least 90 days, but we should also insist on language about a reasonable longer period of maybe 180 days when the program first starts up, because you're just going to get swamped. Thank you.
Go back to the list. Loretta Tassati, Nancy Paisley, Sante Scardillo, Chris Dulac. So if you just want to line up. And then Michael Markowitz. And I'm going to go to these. What's your name? Can you pull out a form and submit it to me?
Hi there, I'm Loretta Tassati. I think everyone's pretty much hit on everything that I've been thinking about. I think that term length of the licenses up to 4 years is ridiculous. It needs to be at most 18 months, but it's like, license. I read in the license lapses. Whoever takes over the space, or the landlord, whoever can continue to operate under that license without any new application. There's a certain amount of, they will have to reapply, but they don't have to stop. So if one license goes bust, anyone can just roll in and pick it up. It's my understanding.
Like within 2 years or something like that?
No, it's they can just go. Whether that's the landlord or someone else just comes in, or the restaurant manager or something like that. It's just there's no policing and no enforcement of any of them. Created, I think, to do that enforcement. I love the idea of 25% of the revenue going toward that. I think it should be an annual license fee, not a license fee for every 4 years. I think there's if it's revenue the city's looking for, make that an annual fee, not every 4 year fee. I think we're selling taxpayers up the river on that one. Corrective action, I read where if the corrective action is issued against a licensee, they have 30 days to correct it. I would think that, and I know this from firsthand experience, Yeah, they won't fix it until they get something more official than that. They don't go to the court. It should be 10 days or within a week, something like that. Versus 30 days. License fee is embarrassing, it's like that. It's, you know, I also feel like this is turning our neighborhood into a mall food court. It really is. It's the largest mall food court anywhere.
But what did, what
You
did?
don't go into a mall, there's.
Yeah.
It's our neighborhoods. There really is. It's, except that you can't see the stores because the sheds are there. There's also like nothing left to. The services that our neighborhood need can't compete with these restaurants and the restaurant lobby. Every landlord wants a restaurant in there because it's a big money earner. Clearly, I'm seeing it. Restaurateurs are taking small spaces with large chunks of land in front of them and alongside them, so that they can put in a giant shed, tables in every lane, that sort of thing. Our neighborhood is losing the inherent mom and pop character that makes it so charming and so lovely. You can't see anything. You can't see the architecture. You can't see anything because the sheds are in the way. I'm starting to squeal. The hours 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. are insane. You can barely get to sleep at night after the garbage trucks go by. They're going to start up in the morning. The heaters are on the streets are a danger. I've seen small children walking by with parents slightly inattentive, reaching out for it because it's flowing and beautiful. I just think that's a bad thing. The electrical wires, I see them hung from trees that cross the sidewalks. They go from the buildings, power box, whatever, up through the tree, around the tree branch and up out to the sheds. That's on Hudson Street. There's a couple of places to do that. This is bad. This is bad for the trees. And it seems like a little bit of a danger. Furnishing lane clearance, I don't know what that is. Oh, if this program is going to be enforced, the city's noise code has to be revised because we all know why. It's loud. People are loud. Ubers are loud. Drunk people are even louder. Garbage trucks are loud. All of that stuff. Something else. What was it? The garbage thing. The garbage in the rounds. I see garbage that overwhelms the bins for most restaurants. All they're doing is piling the garbage on top, extra bags on top of the bins, which still fall into the street. So the sanitation code is going to need more work done if any of this goes through. And I just saw there's so many terms in here that are ill-defined. All of it needs more definition and how it's going to be enforced and what those requirements are.
So two quick clarifications. So for the definitions that are ill-defined, they're not in the definitions part at the beginning, like they're just not defined at all, right?
No.
And then on the electrical wires attached to the street trees, I know, and I'm not defending it, but I'm just so curious as to how they intend to enforce that when it's so prevalently, because I did see it in there that that's not allowed in the, but I understand that that's so much of that is existing already, so I see what's the plan to mitigate, you know, as everyone's starting from ground, you know, from zero and then just not, so, got it, thank you. Hello.
Or maybe that one. Okay, thank you to the committee for holding this hearing. I have a zillion issues with the policy here, but particularly with the way these regular have been drafted, and I want to just pick out a couple as examples. One of them is, for example, the 502 says you can have a roadbed cafe adjacent to the curb, but it also says at a later point that you could have a roadbed cafe in the floating zone on the far side of the bike lane, which Mickey has pointed out, and it's extremely dangerous to everybody concerned and a very bad idea. As to the fees, the definitions have something called a sector rate, which is based on whatever that amounts to, whatever that might mean, the prevalent commercial rate in the area, but even if based on means equal to, which doesn't, the fee rate can be the sector rate as reduced by the department for whatever reason it thinks appropriate, but then when you get to the actual fees, they're fixed fees. And they have nothing to do with the sector rate or the fee rate. For an enclosed cafe, it's fixed at the pre-pandemic amount without any regard to inflation or current commercial rates. The sidewalk rate, the max sidewalk rate, which I have to assume is in our neighborhood, is less than half of the enclosed rate, and the roadway rate is a third, less than a third of the enclosed rate, with absolutely no rhyme, no reason why these should be so reduced, or why we're going through a sector rate in the first place. There's not to mention that, there is no requirement that a sidewalk cafe be adjacent to the building. A sidewalk cafe can be at the curb. Your supposed clear rate can be between tables set up on each side of the sidewalk, so the pedestrians have to fight their way basically through the interior of the restaurant. And the sidewalk cafe could even be in what's called a sidewalk widening, which is the bump out, which has been, we don't have many in our district, but there's one on 14th Street. And they've been put in because they've been needed for pedestrian traffic and safety, not for tables and chairs to be set up. But the most egregious I want to call your attention to is 502E, which is on page 6 of these regs. That the commissioner may, in accordance with section so forth of the code, waive these rules for any reason in the interest of public convenience. And the administrative code provisions referred to, in fact, are the code provisions for the temporary outdoor dining program, which presumably are going to vanish when this becomes permanent. So this is a disgrace in terms of drafting, frankly, but what it means is that the commissioner can waive any rule at any time for any reason, including for somebody that's slipped something under the table. And if this is the case, folks, we're all wasting our time. There's no rules at all. There's whatever the commissioner wants to have. And this has gotten me very upset. I spent 30 years as a corporate attorney doing drafting, and this is a disgrace.
You really know. Thank you, Nancy. Oh.
I do want to point out, we first raised it that with the service of alcohol across a bike lane doesn't work with the state law. There's chapter 165 of 2022, which says that you are not supposed to, you can only serve across a pedestrian thoroughfare alcohol. I would suggest if anybody here has issue with that to write to assembly members, click And Epstein, no, I know just right now, again, because there's been some advocacy on this with the liquor authority asking for the city to clarify the regulations and Senator Kavanaugh, because the city is not following the state law with respect to enforcing that. And the liquor authority relies on the city to do that enforcement. And so they're asking for clarification. So a renewed push to each of the assembly members, I'm sure they would welcome that. And
So we can do that, but you know, this also applies to, there are places that don't serve liquor.
I understand, and that was brought up, that's for the city to deal with, there are different regulations, but with respect to the alcohol service, it doesn't follow state.
Well, but it shouldn't be the rule. I mean, I know you.
Well, it's a discussion point, we're saying that's who to reach out to right now. This was a discussion that there are some inroads with the liquor authority, so.
Could you just explain that one more time on the horizon?
So alcohol service pursuant to chapter 165 of 2022, which is the municipal extensions for alcohol service. It only allows for alcohol service across pedestrian thoroughfares, which would mean a sidewalk. It does not allow for service across a bike lane. But the city has allowed in their outdoor dining program to have outdoor dining across a bike lane. And so while places can have that, with the city law, they cannot serve alcohol. And the city, our elected officials have sent letters to the city and to the state, and it's been a circular, we'll talk to them, 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 talk to them. And now there's been some advocacy because of this to get this resolved.
Well, you know, it's a matter of getting the city to enforce it, don't hold your breath. But I have heard, and I have